Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Big Chill Podcast. This is episode 736. Give Liverpool the crown. Hello, Big Chillians, and welcome back to the Big Chill Podcast. Frank joins us with Eddie. Eddie, how's it going?
Yeah, things are going pretty well. Got the former co-host Sam staying with me at the moment. I did invite him into the studio.
Wait. He's there, but he's not.
He's in my apartment. There. Yeah, he's in my apartment. We just finished watching the Leeds Sheffield United championship match, and that lined up perfectly with the time we had set to record. And I did say, he said, say hello to Frank for me. I said, you can come in and say hello to him yourself. And he said, no, that's all right.
You kidding me? Yeah. Wow.
And then he had to come in because he'd had his iPad charging in here. He even came in to take his iPad out and wouldn't hang around to say hello to you.
Well, as soon as I get 10 seconds here, I'm going to send him a text and tell him, done. Donezo.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he arrived yesterday. He's here until Thursday, so I'll have a few days with him. Had a good night out. Yesterday went out to watch the Manchester City-Liverpool game and then stayed out for a while. After that, it was a pretty long evening, but had a good time.
Did he last the whole night?
He did. He faded towards the very end because I was not drinking shots. He did have a few shots, and they caught up with him in the final, I'd say, hour, but that was fair enough. It was late, and he'd traveled in the morning. It was a long day. He was proud of himself. He did fall asleep in the taxi ride home, but other than that, he was.
That's funny.
Speaking of travel, I have one quick question for you before we get on to sporting topics. You are a Delta fanboy, a loyal Delta customer, and obviously, lots of stories in the news surrounding airline travel in general, but the flight from Minneapolis to Toronto that flipped upon landing. I don't know if you saw the offer that they gave to $30,000. Now, Delta have said that this is just a gesture that they want to give. It does not mean you cannot sue them.
You can still sue.
Supposedly, but I would want to have a very good lawyer read all of the terms and conditions of the $30,000. But my question for you was, if you were involved,
Absolutely. I've already been on record as saying I would take a plane flip as long as you told me I survived.
That wasn't my question.
For $30K.
So that wasn't my question. But thank you for letting us know that.
The second thing I'll say real quick is I am taking that exact flight in 2 months.
Perfect.
I have that exact flight booked.
How disappointing for you that you didn't line it up with a somewhat catastrophic air disaster so that you could get a payout. My question is more, how much money do you think, let me put this scenario as, obviously, no one died in the accident. There's a couple of people with quite severe injuries, but most people sort of bumps and bruises. Assuming you really were fine, there's no ongoing sort of chronic back problems or neck problems because of it. You, a week later, are 100% fully recovered. There will be no long-term repercussions. How much money would you consider to be fair for that type of experience?
I said I would decline the $30,000. Instead, I want to have a lifetime of free first-class upgrades. That doesn't mean I get first-class flights. I still have to book a normal flight, but I have unlimited lifetime free upgrades to first class. That's what I would like.
That's an interesting one. I think that's not smart, but I would want the money for sure. I might want some kind of sweetener from Delta, but I would want them. I mean, here's the thing is, you're confident you would be fine flying after that?
Yeah. There's a lot of things I don't want to say because I don't want it to be out into the universe.
Yeah, you don't want to tempt fate too much. But my point is more...
I've always said, because the one thing what I don't like about flying and what freaks me out about flying is when you're literally just in the air at the very highest that you're at.
This is interesting.
Because that's the issue. Honestly, I understand. But I genuinely feel when you're landing, you've at least maybe got a shot. It's
For,
when you have no chance
yeah.
of like being able to do anything that you're fucked.
But you realize it. I know why you're
Yes, I
saying what you're saying,
understand.
but you know you're
I know.
wrong. Because
I
when
know.
you actually, it's like takeoff and landing where you have very little room for error or recovery. Whereas if you're at 35,000 feet, you can glide for several miles unless like something truly catastrophic has happened to the airplane. But interesting, Sam and I had the same conversation yesterday. He felt exactly the same way as you, that he is most worried about flying when he is at 35,000 feet, but doesn't mind takeoffs and landing, as has been
Well, there are
discussed
times where like it just clicks when I'm flying and I have to like get up and go do something else because I'm about to have like a panic attack.
Yeah, no, I can get that. As you know, and as I think we've discussed previously on the podcast, I am a little bit of a fan of air crash investigations. There's YouTube channels, even if it's just National Geographic air crash investigation. I've watched every single episode of that. There's things like Mentor Pilot that on YouTube that does breakdowns of air crash investigations, and I love things like that. I mean, yeah, the most dangerous points are, of course, takeoff and landing, and I get worried. I'm not scared of flying, but definitely the only moments where I have, certainly if there's bad weather, I don't enjoy either of them particularly.
So can I follow up since you are the expert? Although this isn't the same, this kind of reminds me of when people say, well, most accidents happen within 2 miles of your home. It's like, yeah, because you drive the most there.
Yeah.
This is
If
not relevant because you take off and land the same amount of times, but my question is in a similar line, there are more incidents during that time, but what's the fatality rate per instance? That's what I'm saying. I'm
yeah.
concerned that if there's a crash while you're landing, maybe you've got a 20% chance of surviving. When you have a crash at 80,000 feet or whatever it is,
Oh, what plane are you on? Also,
I'm at the International Space Station.
I hate to break it to you. You don't have a crash at 40,000 feet. You have a crash at 0 feet every time. It's just where did you start
No, when you
plummeting towards
crash
the earth?
into the International Space Station at
Okay.
80,000 feet, when you have an incident in the air there where, let's just be gross, the plane just explodes.
You can't give me a scenario like that, which is also something that doesn't really happen. But the reality, if you have an incident, if you're going to have an incident at either, say, we break it down to 3 stages: takeoff, cruising altitude, landing, you are much better having that incident at cruising altitude because the ability to troubleshoot, it gives you lots of time as a pilot to figure out what's wrong. You also can glide for several miles. So even if there's no power, no nothing, and complete engine failure, you have some ability to try and, get to a safe place. If something really catastrophic happens during takeoff or landing, you have very little time to react. You have no altitude, so you don't have a lot of room to play with. And you're also at the sort of most vulnerable stage of the airplane in terms of, different moving parts, lots more settings that you need to change, whether that's flap positioning and also a whole host of things. What I love about this, if we've got a new listener to the podcast, they're going to think I'm a pilot. I've never flown a plane in my life. I just like
Well,
watching air crash investigation videos.
I'm starting to feel a little uneasy about this. So we can this topic now. I've reached the limit.
Yeah, I mean, I find it hard because I do
I'm
love
starting to
watching
get
these.
unsettled talking
I
about
do love
this.
watching because, so for me, I'll tell you the thought I occasionally have is more during takeoff than anything else. And it is just the idea that the plane is going to be a few hundred feet in the air and just start to bank to one side and then just, it's over. Like you're just going to have the sensation of, oh, here we go. And there's going to be
All
no
right,
chance.
again, can we stop?
But anyway, there's probably someone listening to this who is about to get on a plane or is potentially mid-flight at the time. I hope all of our listeners and the non-listeners, safe travels, safe flights, and that that all of these,
Getting
flying issues sort themselves out.
getting back to the original question of the monetary value, I actually think that's kind of reasonable. Like I understand Delta makes millions and millions of dollars and they can afford it and blah, 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 and whatever. But like I think of other instances where like if some sort of corporation in a driving scenario hit you or totaled your car and you weren't that injured, They're not just going to throw you $30,000. So I think the fact that there was an incident, but for the most part, everyone is okay and comes out of that with minor injuries. I actually think it's not that bad that they gave them that amount of money and still potentially have the opportunity to pursue further legal issues if they want. I think that was fair.
No, I think it's nice. I mean, obviously, I would approach accepting the offer with a great deal of skepticism, even though they've said this does not mean you cannot sue us. This is not you saying that everything was fine. I would still be a little worried about accepting it without knowing exactly what all the, sort of terms and conditions said. But I think it's good of them to make a gesture in case someone has some medical bills to pay or some replacing things that may have been destroyed or lost as a result of the crash. To just say, we want to make sure you have this money so that you're not out of pocket as a result of what's happened. I think that's good. In terms of what actual amount seems fair, I would definitely want more than $30,000. I don't think I would ever fly again. I have to be honest. I
No,
know
but then statistically, then you're good.
you are.
You've
Yes,
gotten your one out of you.
well, kind of. Yes, you could say this is what are the odds of me being in two
It's not how
plane
stats
crashes
happen, but
are low. But it's not as if they're not sort of correlated events. It's not.
no,
Well,
they're not.
I've
It's not how
got
that
that one
works.
out.
It's not.
I'm safe now.
Yeah.
I've used up my one plane crash and I survived. I just think in particular because a landing is, I think I would just be terrified during every landing from that point on to the point that it would just be not worth it. I would just be train travel forever, and that's it.
And boat
And
and the
boat,
Queen
yeah,
Mary to the
yeah,
U.S.
yeah. If I have to go transatlantic, then it's a boat.
You and my dad can ride the Queen Mary 3 together.
Yeah, I would rather row, I think, at that point. That would just be, but I think I would be
If you
done
rode, you'd
fine.
probably break the record.
It's true. If I put my mind to it,
Yeah, I have to say, you're now a running joke in my family where when they want to say, like, how easy something is, they go like, oh, Eddie could have done that in a day.
I love that. I'm happy. I like that I'm in people's minds at all times. Any thought's a positive thought.
So not much sports to talk about. So I think maybe we focus in on European football. Safe to say the Premier League is officially wrapped up now with the 2-0 convincing victory over City for Liverpool. They're now what? They're 11, 13?
11
up. Yeah, but they are a game over, but still. So at the very worst, they're 8 up.
Yeah, let's assume, not that we can, but let's assume Arsenal win.
Not that we can anymore.
Their game in hand, but yeah, that would put them 8 points clear with 9 games to go. That, again, as we kind of discussed last episode, as we were building into this tough set of fixtures for Liverpool, it was, if Arsenal are going to have a chance, it's going to be Liverpool need to slip up a couple of times over the next 3 games, and Arsenal also has to be perfect.
Checked.
Yeah, and yet they had the draw last week. You kind of thought the door might be slightly ajar. It also felt like then if Arsenal were able to beat West Ham, they were going to put a bit of pressure on Liverpool heading into the Manchester City match. It then turned out that Arsenal slipped up against West Ham, removed all pressure. Then, Liverpool faced a Erling Haaland-less Manchester City side. It was, I actually think City played well in the match. I think the scoreline slightly flattered Liverpool. I think City, you had the disallowed goal with Marmoush in the first half. They had created a couple of decent chances. I don't think City I'm not saying Liverpool didn't deserve to win, but definitely City were all right for long periods of that game. But Liverpool were and often are clinical and, defend well. And yeah, I think it's all over. So for the first time in a while, we're not going to have a real title race that comes down to the wire. It also means that Liverpool can focus more on the Champions League, and I guess so can Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, getting back to the Haaland, I don't think it would have mattered much. I don't know if you've seen that, but his record against Liverpool is pretty abysmal. In 8 matches, he's got 1 win, 2 draws, and 5 losses. That's not a Tom Brady like stat.
No, and obviously this has been, a big part of the Erling Haaland discussion for the last couple of years. Is he is a little bit of a flat track bully, and he has, I'm not going to say gone missing. Obviously, it's with the style of play that he has, which is He is a goal scorer who doesn't necessarily do a lot else and who also is not creating chances for himself. When you are playing against tougher opposition, it goes without saying that you will have fewer opportunities to score. And so, will have probably less of an impact. But, there have been serious questions surrounding his effectiveness against good teams and a tendency to not deliver in big matches. You had it in the last round of the Champions League where he, finally scored against Real
Finally.
Madrid, picked up the 2 goals in the first leg, but they lost 3-2, and then they were, comfortably beaten in the return fixture. So yeah, it's just a bit of a
Real
season from hell for Manchester City. Oh, we were speaking about it actually watching the game. I was speaking about it with a couple of other people. It's hard to think of a City player who walks away from this season thinking that they had a good year, a good season. Most of the time, even in sort of disappointing team seasons, you can point to one or two individuals and say, oh, well, his reputation's been boosted. This is a young player who took a step forward, or this player kind of dealt well with the challenges. And really, I think across the board for City, even the young players like Phil Foden, this feels like a sort of lost year for him, where, he certainly hasn't progressed. Most of their defenders, I mean, so many of them have been blighted by injury, but Haaland still scored quite a lot of goals, but based on the high standards that he set for himself, it feels like a disappointing season. It also feels like they need an almost complete rebuild. Like we've gone from thinking they were this dominant, unstoppable force to maybe they need 7 or 8 players. It's very strange.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that was like one of the things I was going to ask coming into the podcast is whether you think this is a quick rebound and next year they're back to being favorites to win the Premier League, or if this is the start of a disassembly in a way.
I definitely think it's an end of an era, and there's a lot of big positions that need to be. They probably will regret not selling Ederson last year. There was interest from Saudi Arabia, and looking back on it, they probably should have let him go. He's sort of dropped off a cliff, and he'd gone from being in discussion for best goalkeeper in the Premier League to, if not the best goalkeeper in Europe, to not clear if he's the best goalkeeper at Manchester City.
Is he good?
Yeah.
Is he actually good?
And yeah, I think they spent a lot in the January transfer window, and it's too early to judge. They brought in Vitor Reis from Brazil as a 19-year-old central defender. What impact will he have? Kusanov hasn't had much opportunity since joining from Lens. Nico Gonzalez, has played a bit since joining from Portugal, but that's 3 players who might address 3 major pain points. You also get Rodri back next season. That should solve a lot of their problems. But just having Rodri missing doesn't explain why they've suddenly forgotten how to defend or are incapable of scoring goals. Like, Rodri is a big missing piece, but it's not a cure-all for all of their problems. Marmoush looks like a good signing, for sure. And that gives them another goal-scoring option. But no, I think it feels like it's time to move on from a lot of their players. Probably time to move on from Ederson. John Stone, Kyle Walker, you assume is going to leave permanently. John Stones is just injured so much that it feels harsh to say time to move on from him, but you can't rely on him. So you need
He's like City's Luke Shaw.
A little bit. That's a big compliment to Luke Shaw, but the fullback positions, Guardiola's been good, but is either what they really need there. Now, there's a lot of players who you feel like maybe can be shifted, but you obviously don't want to sign. There can't be the expectations they're going to sign 7 players this summer. It's an interesting moment for Pep Guardiola, because for all the success that he's had at Barcelona, Bayern Munich, and at City, he has never had to really rebuild a team. Yes, he has raised standards at all of those clubs and achieved incredible success and delivered incredible consistency, but he's joined them at good moments with talented players and where some pieces had to be moved around, but he did not have to, completely rework and rebuild. And this is the first real test for him in that way. And so if you're him and you hope you have the mindset of, well, I get to really prove how good I am right now, because there would always be the little bit of criticism of, hey, anyone could have won with Barcelona, anyone could have won with Bayern Munich, anyone could have won with Manchester City. No one's saying that about this current Manchester City team, so there's a lot of opportunity within these troubles, but it's an interesting test. I don't know. I won't feel confident that they're going to win the Premier League next season, so it starts to feel like they're at least 24 months away from being back to where they were.
So here's a hypothetical, and I know we hate hypotheticals when we could just wait until it actually happens, but let's end the season. Let's be about a month away from the start of next season. City have signed players. Mo Salah has left Liverpool. Who is the favorite to win the Premier League?
Yeah, it's a really good question.
That's what I'm here for.
So you're saying I'm happy with the transfers. Is this me saying who's favorite, or is this you asking me to say who I think would be the bookmaker's favorite,
Both.
for example?
Both or either. And what I'll say about the City signings is realistically who will be available and that they can probably get. Let's not assume that they're signing every great player. Let's make it realistic.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, obviously they have to address some big issues in midfield. Don't necessarily, coming up with a list of who could they possibly sign, and would they be available? Because for the most part, you're probably looking at bringing some players in from good clubs. So yes, you can do a little bit what they did in the January transfer window and sort of go to smaller teams, but there's a solid chance that you might be looking at, players at other big clubs. So you need the moment to be right to be able to get them. So providing a list of names is a bit tough. And, there were players that were discussed in the January transfer window that they didn't sign, Zubimendi, Goretzka, a host of players to kind of strengthen their central midfield options. If they were able to bring in someone of that caliber for central midfield, I would definitely feel more confident. If they were able to make shore up their defense with, let's say, a new goalkeeper, probably, and some kind of long-term solution at one of the fullback positions, and then probably another, it comes down to things like, are they moving on from Kevin De Bruyne? How big of an overhaul are you doing this summer? Skip ahead and kind of give you the sort of TLDR answer to that question. I will say Liverpool will be bookmakers' favorites, even if Mo Salah leaves. I think
that's asking a lot of Cody Gapko.
It's asking lots of players, yeah. And Liverpool are not too far away from having to go through a equally major rebuild and overhaul, because whether Mo Salah leaves this summer or in a year or 2 years, that's a huge shoes to fill. Virgil van Dijk doesn't have that long left in his career. Alisson doesn't have that long. You've got a lot of key players. It's almost certain that Trent Alexander-Arnold is probably going to Real Madrid this summer. Yeah, Liverpool, we expected Liverpool to have to go through this process before we thought City would, but just the fact that City have had a disastrous 8 months doesn't mean that Liverpool all of a sudden don't also have to do that rebuild. So I think Liverpool will be the bookmakers' favorites. In terms of who will be favorites for me, I mean, I could make Ollie really mad and say I think it should be Chelsea and just doom Chelsea to another disappointing season next year. But, on the basis that they have such a big squad and some signs of encouragement that we saw from them in the first 4 or 5 months of the season, I'll be optimistic about City's ability to sign the right players. And I'll say I think City should be favorites next season based on how aggressive they were in the January transfer window. So if you think that they're going to go out and spend another £200-300 million this summer, I'll say more likely that they're able to fix their problems. And if Liverpool have lost Mo Salah, that that's going to be too tough for them to replace both a talisman and also just, their biggest goal threat. So I'll say City.
Wow. After all that, right back to City.
Yes, but this is with the condition that they have a good summer in the transfer, and that Mo Salah is leaving Liverpool. So those are two. That's one medium size if and one very big if.
Well, one team, Eddie, you did not mention are Tottenham Hotspur. And I say Tottenham Hotspur because I have read the memo that they have sent out to all the UK broadcasting. And I don't know if you saw this. But
we got it.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, we got it in our email.
Nice.
Chill podcast. Can't call them Tottenham anymore.
I'll read that email just in case. It says, in a world full, the opening sounds like it's like a
movie trailer.
Movie. In a world full of Uniteds, cities, and Rovers, there is only one Hotspur, Tottenham Hotspur. When referring to our team or the brand, please use Tottenham Hotspur, Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, or THFC. Never refer to our club as Tottenham Hotspur FC, or TH, or I guess THC for that matter.
Yeah, not to be confused for the stimulant. I kind of get why they do that. I mean, I suppose this is the type of thing clubs might do consistently in terms of just saying, this is how we'd like to be referred, particularly when you're dealing with international media, especially if you think of the US and how teams might be spoken of, and wanting to ensure consistency, and so that potentially new supporters are, exposed to the right names and terminology. It's not great timing because, look, this is not the same. This is the sort of marketing or commercial department thinking about this. It's not like that impacts. It's not taking away resources from their scouting department or the coaching work that's being done on a daily basis. But if, to use the word that's so popular in the political sphere, the optics of this is what you're worried about when we're going through a fairly disastrous spell on the pitch, why don't we focus on the important things?
It's literally a page out of their brand playbook, which they came up with late last year. And they said that Tottenham is the name of an area, not the name of the club. But Eddie, that got me thinking.
One, just before you get there, as someone who goes through those processes with companies of kind of coming up with brand playbooks, design systems, all sorts of things, I would love to know which agency they employed as part of this process. I would love to see the pitch deck that was presented to them that Daniel Levy had to sit through, explaining why it's so important that you get the name right, how this impacts the club at every level. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in that particular meeting, but good for whoever sold it to them because they bought it.
Yeah, literally. So that got me thinking, Eddie, how many English clubs are there named Rovers? Would you like to take a guess?
So you got Blackburn Rovers, Bristol Rovers, Tranmere Rovers.
Yeah. One more easy one.
More easy one.
Not easy, but one more I would think a little more popular.
Can you give me the division?
League Two.
League Two. Give me the first letter of the
D.
Doncaster Rovers.
Now you're getting into the low levels.
This is like getting towards National League, sort of semi-professional level.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I'll just Forest Green Rovers.
Okay, I should have got that one actually, in fairness.
Paulton. I say
Paulton?
That. Paulton.
Yeah, how do you spell it?
It's spelled like Paul, the name, Ton.
Okay, Paulton, yeah. Never heard of it.
And Welton.
Okay, so that's 7.
And then 2 Scottish clubs and 2 Irish clubs.
Yeah, Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah, there you go.
In Ireland,
one has a race course. The other island one has a race course.
Dundalk Rovers? I don't know.
Sligo, is that how you say it?
Sligo Rovers, yeah.
There's a race course, but I couldn't pronounce it.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, definitely it's easier if you have... I mean, that's also what makes it weird that they're stressing about this so much, is because every aspect of their name is quite unique. So you would think that you have less reason to be so concerned about the branding. But yeah, I mean, as I said, that's my day job, and I sit in a lot of meetings like that. And even sometimes when I'm going through it, it feels like a massive pile of bullshit that you're trying to convince a company how much this matters. And I think it is super important for football clubs to work on their marketing, branding, communication. I just think most of that should focus on transparency with your supporters, giving them access and insights, making them feel truly sort of part of the club. I think the expectation from supporters nowadays extend far beyond what they would have done 20 years ago. And with things like, all the Netflix shows or, Hard Knocks on HBO or whatever it is, it's made us feel like we should be able to get an all access pass to the teams that we support and follow all of the time. And that I should know exactly what's going on, which is tough because obviously part of the challenge of running any sports team is there needs to be a degree of secrecy to some things you do, both from a tactics perspective, but also who are you signing, who are you trading for, who are you trying to buy? Fans want all information immediately, but Yeah, I think that to me would be my bigger focus is on how do I actually build genuine engagement and not worry quite so much about which name is being used by a media outlet.
I have one other small football topic. One of my favorite quotes I've adopted from the football community is "Can he do it on a cold, rainy night in Stoke?" I don't know if you saw, but there's always been a lot of criticism for Messi over his career about whether he could do it. And did he, Eddie, silence the critics by scoring a goal against Kansas City Football Club in -8 degree Fahrenheit weather with the wind chill, which is about -22 Celsius? Does that answer the critics, Eddie?
Yes and no. So yes, from a pure weather side of it, yes. But, part of that expression is also getting into like the style of play of the opponent. And, if he was dealing with long throws, direct football, a bit of kicking and bullying and stuff. And I mean, look, there's no doubting that he's Messi's overall greatness and the fact that he would be an impressive and effective player in under any circumstances, in any condition. But I don't think playing Kansas City silences any critics, no matter where, when, or how it was played.
I'm sorry, I guess I didn't get the memo from them. It's Sporting Kansas City. Sorry. That memo didn't come to the email.
Hey, look, as we've loved to discuss on the podcast and the issue over Sporting Lisbon, that's a club that needs to send out a memo because everyone gets their name wrong. So one club that's is sort of misnamed on a consistent basis seems to not be doing anything to address that issue.
I have just a quick sidebar quiz for you. We talked about Erling Haaland. I wanted to bring it up when you brought up Erling Haaland not being super clutch against Liverpool or against big matches and in big matches in general. Do you want to take a guess at what LeBron James' record is at game tying or game winning attempts since joining the Lakers in 2018?
Well, I'm going to, based on the fact that you've decided to pick this as a talking point, I'm going to assume it's awful. I also know the other night he missed 2 3-pointers in the dying seconds to try and tie the game.
These are games, not attempts, though.
Yeah.
So that would count as one. Even
I will say, I'm going to go and try and guess the actual number, which is going to be tough. So he's been there for what? 4 seasons? 5?
28.
Okay. I'll say, let's say he averages 5 a year, 6 a year. I'll say he's attempted 35 and that he's made 6 of them.
All right. He's attempted 30.
Okay.
So we're close. So do you want to adjust that?
3.
He's 1 in 29.
Nice. You got to keep trying. He's due.
That is bad.
He should make that. You know how Michael Jordan had that commercial where he sort of said, of the game tying and winning shots I've taken in my life, I have missed, blah, blah. Like the point was supposed to be that even in greatness, you have failure. Do you remember that commercial from the 90s where he speaks about it? It's sort of him and you got to keep working and stuff. He should do that. But then with that statistic and just a bunch of other really sort of depressing ones surrounding his performance, I mean, look, he's still fantastic. He just scored 40 points as a 40-year-old. That's not supposed to, this isn't me or you knocking or hating LeBron James, but yeah, maybe with Luka Doncic there now, maybe give the ball to someone else.
I mean, it brings up the question, do you still try?
So I think this is a tough thing with right early in LeBron James's career. He was so heavily criticized for someone who passed up late game shots. And, his argument was get the best shot. Yeah, maybe, but that you get the best shot out there. And if he's going to be double teamed and the focus is going to be on stopping him, then you find the other player. And obviously, even Michael Jordan had those moments, the Steve Kerr moment in the NBA Finals. But with Jordan, that's the exception. And it sort of adds to his greatness that in certain instances, he knew when to trust a teammate and when to pass the ball rather than to just, be in isolation and try and find the game winner. I think the problem for LeBron James, he's obviously concerned about the greatest of all time debate. He wants to try and cement that status. And if that does not involve him being the primary scorer in game-tying, game-winning situations, then that's a kind of knock on his greatness. I think that's
making it worse. Is this making the argument worse?
I don't know.
If you were 1 for 10, that's okay. But now that you're 1, well, how bad does it get? 1 for 50?
See, I think you and I would both say yes. We would respect him more or think it would be if he was making a great play and setting up a teammate to score. But someone like Stephen A. Smith or, all of those types of talking head shows on ESPN and Fox Sports and stuff, they would be saying just the fact that I would rather see him take the shot and miss. And that's a sign of his belief in himself and his greatness. If he's passing up the shot, then that means he just doesn't have it. I don't think that way, but definitely in the media, I do think there are a fair number of people who would say not taking the shot is worse than taking it and missing it, even if you miss it 100 times.
All right, Michael Scott.
And I mean, this comes off the back. There was obviously the discussion post Manchester City Liverpool match on Sky, speaking about, can Mo Salah kind of establish himself as a true great when he's playing for Egypt and playing in AFCON and not getting the same opportunities at the World Cup. Sort of if you don't have both that level of exposure, but also the ability to prove yourself in all facets of the game, can you really enter the discussion for greatness? Erling Haaland also suffers from that a bit, from the fact that he plays for Norway and can't prove himself on the international scene in quite the same way as, say, Messi or Ronaldo could. I think there's some correlation between those, and that people want to see you do all things effectively. Otherwise, they will just focus on the thing that you haven't done and use that to sort of tear apart your legacy. Or it's a little bit stupid, but it is the way it works. I guess just to round things up, worth saying we didn't record an episode. The Champions League draw was on Friday. So the draw for the next round of the Champions League has been made. It's thrown up a couple of interesting ties. PSG Liverpool was not a bad one, but I would say a little bit underwhelming in terms of how some of the matchups lined up. Bruges playing Aston Villa, PSV Arsenal is not exactly a thriller. Feyenoord Inter is it's not exactly the eye-catching European matchup that you might want to see. Benfica Barcelona is decent.
Rematch.
Yeah, I mean, it's disappointing that you have Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid. Yes, that's a good couple of matches, but, we get to see it in Spain anyway. And same Bayern Munich, Bayer Leverkusen, also a nice match, two good teams. Again, it doesn't feel that exciting to get that at this stage of a European competition, because it just, you've got a quarter of these games that are just a repeat of things we've seen in the league a couple of times already.
Who wins?
I'll go through all of them really quickly. I think Aston Villa go through.
No, I'm all of it.
Well, I'll do both. So I think Aston Villa go through, Arsenal go through, Inter go through, Barcelona go through, Real Madrid go through, Dortmund go through, Bayern go through, Liverpool go through, and I think Liverpool will win the Champions League. All right, any other sporting topics to cover?
Yeah. We can't skip over, Eddie, the Four Nations final. We don't get to talk about hockey very much, but hockey delivered for once. I have to say, I am not a person who watches a lot of hockey. I play a ton of hockey, but I don't watch that much regular season. I watch playoffs pretty consistently, but regular season, if it's on, I'll watch a little bit, especially if it's someone I want to see play. I like watching really good players play, but I'm not super dedicated to it. But this was spectacular. Like, it was one of the best hockey games I've maybe ever watched in my life. It was super impressive. I did not expect it. I did not expect the tournament in general to be as hard fought as it was, but in particular, I mean, this finals, it had like drama going into the game as to who was going to play, who wasn't going to be able to play, who was going to, gut it through injuries. And there were multiple players that were playing through injuries and now are going to miss like the next 2 weeks for their regular NHL team. Like, there is a ton of passion to this game. It was the highest watched hockey game, the second highest watched in the last decade, last 10 years. Tickets were going for $2,000 to $3,000 a pop. I mean, it was intense. The crowd was crazy. The game was a great game. 3-2. You had a good amount of goals, but a ton of really nice saves, great plays, went to overtime. Like, it completely lived up to the hype. It was like, honestly, one of the best hockey games I've ever watched. And it was super exciting.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, so for listeners, I think
Did
most
you
of our
watch
listeners,
it?
I mean, it was very late here, so I did not. I did watch the highlights, but yeah, I'm not I'm not a big enough. Last week was very busy for me. Under normal circumstances, I was interested enough that it was sort of on my radar and I wanted to stay up and watch it, but it just didn't make sense with how some other things lined up. Yeah, I mean, and I obviously wanted Canada to win because hate the US in all things, but so,
Wow, now just going right out and saying it. Not even
it,
trying to hide it anymore.
no, I mean, so it was satisfying to see Canada win. And obviously, yeah, any hockey game that goes to overtime always, it's an exciting way in which for a hockey game to be decided. But yeah, I mean, you could not have, for launching this as a concept, not that you want to have complicated geopolitical situations and maybe not everything being great in the world, but if you want to take one small positive out of that, is that it made, a Canada USA hockey match extra feisty and felt like there was more on the line than just hockey for those two games that they played against each other, but particularly the finals. Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether they'll be able to sustain that same level of either intensity, animosity, interest, but it's off to a good start.
I mean, the really good thing is you have the Winter Olympics are coming in less than a year, and that will definitely ride into the Olympics because I think that picks it up even higher because the Olympics obviously are going to mean more than a four nations medal. So that will be, I think, super entertaining. I think we should see if we can get some nice press passes for the finals. Maybe we can go broadcast from the finals. It is in Italy.
Yes, close for me.
Super close.
Yeah, I mean, basically on my doorstep, basically. Yeah, no, I'm sure we'll do live commentary from the. I did get asked actually because obviously we're doing our little mini UK tour. We're going to the Cheltenham Festival. We're going to a match in Blackburn. Possibly be able to squeeze some other sporting events into that trip. Who knows? I was asked if we would be live streaming those events. I'm confident that our listeners enjoy the experience. I don't know who that would be interesting for. I don't know exactly who would decide that they wanted, say, to commentary on the Cheltenham Festival but aren't just going to turn their TV on and watch it, or,
No. What they need to do is turn the TV on, but then mute it and listen to us live streaming about the race.
Yeah, especially, which is really great when you're at a race when we probably won't have great understanding of what's going on, say, on the other side of the race course. As they're going down the back, we'll have basically no idea. So we'll just be trying to watch a big screen to figure out what's happening there. So yeah, that would be thrilling commentary. But no, we'll definitely be providing live updates from all of that trip and some extra content. But I think live streaming, or vlogging. I did get asked if we would be maybe doing some vlogs. I don't personally have the personality for vlogging. I think I would be way too self-conscious and aware to sort of whip out a camera and be speaking into it in front of a crowd of people, sort of walking through, a stadium or anything. It's not something I would be capable of doing.
Yeah, fuck it, I'll do it.
All right, well, there you go. All right, I guess that's probably everything for sports.
I have a sport-adjacent topic.
All right, go for it.
Did you see that there has been rumors on the Twitter sphere that Ted Lasso coming back season 4, and it's going to be based on the AFC Richmond's women's team?
I've seen these rumors. These are all obviously delicate waters in which we will now wade. I was a big fan of Ted Lasso season 1. As you know, most of the, if not all of the messaging from Ted Lasso aligns with my political and social views. Part of why I enjoyed the show less was because it felt like they were trying to cover all topics at once and actually did a disservice to a lot of those topics because they were switching from one to the other. So my fear would be, if you then focus on the women's team, is that they will take a similar approach. If this is going to be focusing on the women's team and that is the story, but it doesn't involve then a host of other, like very big topics that deserve attention, then maybe that would be good. The other thing I don't know is how do you have any of the existing main characters? I know some of, like, Ted Lasso is not going to be in it, but there is the idea.
I don't think Ted Lasso will be there, but my idea was that Roy Keane would probably coach the women or something like that.
You mean Roy Kent?
Roy? No, I don't. I mean, Roy Keane is signed on He's going to coach the women in a fictional TV show.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it would be something along those lines, but then that makes no sense, as a kind of, not that Ted Lasso has ever been grounded in reality, but the trajectory there for Roy Kent would make absolutely no sense. I mean, look, I think Ted Lasso should ride off into the sunset, having had a couple of good seasons behind it and with its legacy intact. But if they're going to bring it back, then I don't find that to be the most compelling storyline that they could have come up with. Speaking of TV, I guess we can do a quick Severance catch up.
Yeah, I have watched it, but now I got to remember. Oh,
Well, this
yeah, it
is
was a good episode. I liked it.
So obviously, spoiler alert, if you have not watched the latest episode or you're not watching Severance but plan on watching it and don't want any of it ruined, I guess now is a good time to end the episode. But yeah, things picked up.
Yeah,
The
definitely
big
picked up.
plot lines, obviously, Mark had his chip removed from his brain. You had him meeting.
And then it got supercharged.
Yes. You had him
with
meeting.
the injection.
Yeah, you had him meeting Helena at the Chinese restaurant.
Yeah.
And having their kind of awkward interaction.
Well, here's a good one. Here's what I was thinking. So you had, some extracurricular office activities on this episode. You had, I can never remember his name now, making out with his Audi's wife in one scene, and then Helly and Mark also sealing the deal underneath some desks. Mark has now taken down Innie and Outie Helena. Is Outie Mark now going to try and take it down Innie and Outie Helena? Is there a scenario where all four have slept with each other in each way possible?
Maybe. Do you think the episode raised a couple of both slightly ethical but interesting questions as it comes to relationships and how you balance that between innies and outies? One would be, well, I ask you the three questions. I'll overwhelm you with questions and you can address all of them at once. One, so take the scenario where you're an innie, well, you're severed, and you have this kind of setup where your wife comes to see you and meets your innie. As an outie, do you feel as if that's your wife cheating on you? Or is that just, it's still me, so that's fine?
In every scenario, I think it's cheating. Because they're completely different people.
Okay. All right. Scenario two, let's say with the...
I would yes end it.
Okay.
Or yes but it. But I guess you could at least, at the very least, think she must genuinely like me or have liked me because she still wants to be with a slightly different version of me.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
at least
obviously,
it's not like a completely different person where
yeah,
it's
you
like,
look the same.
yeah, and you probably have some characteristics. I think obviously what the aspect is that's probably what she was first attracted to, but then he's been bogged down by not being able to hold a steady job and having multiple kids maybe, and financial issues and things like that now he's become a different personality, but that she was probably attracted to that type of personality that his innie shows. So I guess that's a good sign at least, but no, I still don't think it's kosher.
That's the bit I kind of don't understand. He's so burdened by his inability to keep a job and the financial elements. But again, you have to kind of assume that they're reasonably well paid for doing this. So you would have thought the financial burdens are lessened. And why would you feel clearly, if you go through the severed process, you're not going to expect yourself to also work another job. So you've checked the requirement for the job off. You would have thought that would have removed all pressure. It's very weird to do this and then be like, well, but still, I can't get a job. It's like, well, you kind of did. Like, you went to the job interview, you got the job, you then got severed. That's you getting the job.
But maybe he doesn't want to be severed. Like Mark S wants to be severed, but maybe this was like, I literally can't get a job, so now I have to do something I don't want to do, which is be severed. I'd rather be unsevered doing a job that I can remember and like, maybe, right?
Okay, scenario two, which we've also had in the show. Your husband or wife is severed, their innie has a relationship with someone else. Is that cheating?
Say it again.
So your husband or wife is severed. Their innie has a relationship with someone else. Is that cheating?
No, I don't think so because I consider them different people.
See, this is really interesting because that would definitely, I think, bother me. Whereas them, my husband or wife sleeping with or making out with or whatever, developing some type of emotional attachment to my innie would not bother me because I would still feel like that's a version of me. And that the reason why they like them is just because, kind of as you touched on, but it was just, it's just me, but in a slightly different presentation.
If the severed technology, I don't know if that's the right word, would hold true. So like if they are of completely different mindsets, then I consider the innie like a different person. They just have your body, but their thoughts and their experiences are not yours. You don't share them. So I'm okay with that. But if
Would
there's
you?
bleeding over like Mark now, then it's
That's
no,
not good.
no bueno.
Okay. And what if that extended to them having a family? Like the innie has a family. I mean, we are dealing with a very realistic scenario here. It seems to be hinted at in the show that maybe Helly, will be pregnant. And so then where does that leave you?
Well, this is Miss Wong's fault. She took over management duties for one day and didn't hand out any protection.
Well, there's also speculation.
She's letting all their innies just do whatever they want.
Well, I don't love to, I know you much prefer to, out of the two of us, to sort of read online theories or listen to podcasts about the show.
I got all the theories.
I know there are some theories that she is his child in the first place, perhaps cloned child of a sort of, or, sort of artificial, process.
Yes.
Maybe she just wants her dad to be happy.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think that is an issue. I think this is gross negligence by the company because the innie is there to work, not to start relationships and have families. So, but if that were to happen, that is a very strange scenario. I don't know what happens there. But I mean, the more interesting part of this story, which people don't really actually like, I've seen a lot of backlash about that Helena could be pregnant, is you might not know what Helena is pregnant because the body is shared. So was it Innie or Outie that was the one that got pregnant?
Yeah. I mean, what a conundrum. And then
this is why Outie Mark needs to sleep with Outie Helena, because then you have no idea.
Yeah. Complete mess up. And then obviously this episode also involved Irving going to see Bert, and with some clues to the fact that Bert may be a little bit evil.
Bert, bad. Come on.
May be involved more heavily in the company long term, and may also maybe the severed sort of project is older than is publicly known. Interesting. I thought that was a nice little twist and a nice process.
Let me float a question out to you. Was Bert ever really severed?
It's good. I mean, it's easy to start to have the thought process that there's a lot of non-severed people down on the sort of inside, and that basically anyone who works for the company in any kind of senior role is not severed. I'll go with no. He was never severed.
Oh, okay. I think for now I'm leaning towards yes. But I'm not going to be shocked if he wasn't. Because maybe I always think with shows like this, they like to do he's lying, but there was also some truth to what he said. So I think they're lying in the fact that he's been working for Lumen for a lot longer, but maybe they were kind of being honest in the fact that as a couple, they weren't happy with how bad of a person he was. So he chose to be severed to kind of save his soul. Which brought the question to me that I really thought Irving was going to ask, but he didn't, is if his innie were to go to heaven, that's not the Bert that you fell in love with and are married to. It's a different person. It's the Bert that is attracted to Irving. So like you're meeting up in heaven, but you're not meeting with the person that you spent your time with. I thought that was going to be, I thought that would be a great point to bring up, but that was kind of missed in the discussion.
It's a deep sort of theological question.
Yeah.
one that probably is far beyond this podcast. It also would have to also involve a long discussion about how you imagine heaven being. It's this sort of world where you all meet up and everyone knows everyone who everyone is still. But it's true that if you do believe in heaven and you do think you're going to go there and sort of see family and friends and contacts, how would God, let's assume now in this.
Do you think God integrates? He does like what's happening with Mark? He merges them back?
Yeah, does he give you like an aggregated assessment of your goodness? Or if part of you is really good and one part of you is really bad, does he insist, is Lumen then involved in your ascension to heaven and has to ensure that the right version of you gets to heaven? Yeah. Do you have a split personality while you're there? Yeah, it's true. It's not really a thought exercise that probably needs to have too much time wasted on it, but is quite an interesting one.
Again, overall, I think this was a better episode. It moved pretty well and it got away from... Again, there's a lot of clues and hints and little references in there, but you can still watch the episode and not have to focus on them and have it be a really good episode. So I genuinely enjoyed that.
Yeah, I mean, in season 2, I'm fundamentally missing the why, like the why the Innies are sort of searching for some of the things they are. That is kind of lost to me. In season 1, that was very clear. And with the exception of Mark, there seems to be no real purpose behind some of their actions as Innies. So that's the only thing that I would say. But I agree with you. There is more involved. The other thing I don't really get is like, why didn't Mark tell his sister about the woman who's helping him to sort of merge his split personalities or even the ability to remove the chip from his brain?
Maybe it's one of those because it's so dangerous. She doesn't want her to yell at him or something or be mad at him, maybe.
Maybe, but he told her about the idea of sort of burning something into his eyelids. So, I'd rather say, hey, there's this person who knows what they're doing and they're helping me with the process, not I came up with some crackpot idea and I'm running with it. All right, anything else?
Oh, I think that about wraps it up.
All right, well, I guess we can end the podcast. I can go back to my living room. I can tell Sam that you said hello.
Yeah, so I said hi.
I'll say hello to him now.
Not.
I'll say you're looking forward to seeing him in 2/3 weeks' time at in England.
I actually messaged him. He said he's going to come in after the podcast and formally say hello.
Who says I'm letting
Joke's
him in?
on him. I'm leaving as soon as we end this.
Just let him walk in the door. You'll see him appear behind him, and then you just leave as soon as you see him.
On the Smart List podcast, they tell the guests to like close the laptop shut when they're done. I'm just same thing, but mine's just a desktop. I'm just gonna
smash it
and the screen against
just
the wall. And leave.
Open your window and toss your screen out the window.
All right, I'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Cheerio.